G'day trendsetters, welcome to episode 7 of the BNSF Birdwood sub, and you've found me trackside actually working, well, sort of working. Why are we trackside? Well, the reason why we're trackside is because there's track being put down on the layout. So let's go back to the shed now and have a gander and see how we're travelling. Well, we're travelling by rail, of course, and as you can see there is some track actually down on the layout. So I suppose it's time to get into it and explain how I lay track anyway. So let's go.
Right, track lane. Ooh, okay. The track I'm using is Pico code 83. Now for those of you that are new to the hobby, the codes basically mean the fineness of the rail. The actual size of the rail itself, not the gauge or the scale. It's HO scale obviously. And years ago, code on 100 was, I suppose it was the first track made really, and well, the first serious scale track made. And guys who were professional and had a lot of money used to lay code 70 rail, which was still the same width, still HO gauge, but the rail itself was very fine, a lot smaller, more prototypical size. And it was extremely hard to work with. It's very fiddly, it's fine, but it was more accurate in its dimensions of the rail itself. So then of course, as the rails on real railroads got bigger and bigger, and the actual web of the rail, which is the vertical bit, got bigger, and rails got heavier and stronger, they made code 83. Code 83 is the exact size of heavy rail used, pretty well around, well, in America and around the world today. So this is code 83. So marries up with code 100, not a problem. You just have to use different fish plates. There's a transition fish plate. I just find with code 83 the sleepers are a bit more realistic, and the rail itself being just a little bit smaller. You can hardly tell the difference, but when you see a bit of rolling stock on it, I think it looks better on code 83. But if you've got code 100, that's fine. The thing with code 100 is if you haven't laid a lot of flex track before, I would probably start with code 100, because code 83 is not very forgiving. The little ties here, the little clips that attach the rail to the sleepers are very fine, so it's very easy to rip them off, or rip the track out of them. And once the track pops out of them, they close in like that, and you can't put the track back into the sleeper unless you feed all the sleepers out and feed them back in again, which does happen. So if you haven't laid track before, or if you're new, I'd probably try some code 100 first, and if you've got a steady hand and you can get used to it, maybe go to code 83 if you want to. If not, stick with code 100. I don't care. So we've got our Pico flex track, code 83, and of course we're going to be laying straights and curves. Now I like laying curves better. Straights, if you want a really long, nice string line, straight, one of those ones where you look down and you can't see anything. Well, what you do is you get yourself a straight edge, like a level or something like that, and you put it in the corner of the layout and you don't touch it. If you want a super duper straight edge, there's one tool you have to use, and you won't find anything better, and it's these, or in my case, this one. So if you want really good straight rail, you have to use your eyes. A straight edge will only give you a point-to-point straight line, but if you want a super fine, beautiful straight line, you have to get down track level and use your eyes. So I suppose we're going to be doing a curve here at the start, so we need to talk about soldering the track, as you should do on your curve, so you don't get a kink in the joins, and also transition curve. So here we go.
How, as we've gone around the curve, the inside rail has got shorter and the outside rail has got longer. That's actually the inside rail, trendsetters, whichever way you look at it. Now, what you don't do is cut them off straight, because what you like to do is to stagger your joins. So when this join is here, it's got a solid bit of rail opposite it. When this join is here, it has a solid piece. Well, the real railroaders try and do that as well. You can't, in some electrical
where our track sections are, we have at work, we have to have them pretty well opposite each other in certain instances, but in other cases we only break one rail. So if that's the case, there's a join here and there'll be a solid rail here. So if you can do that, it's a little bit more mucking around, you'll get a much smoother joint. Remember the 6 Ps, trendsetters. You want to be running double stacks over this mofo. That's what you want to be doing, not mucking around. Right. Now, first thing we have to do is trim our clips here, a couple of rail clips or ties, so when the sleeper goes, when the fish plate goes in, it obviously doesn't hit these. So we'll just trim a couple of these off. Once again, our sharp little knife. If you do have to cut towards yourself, make sure your fingers are out the way. But cut towards your mates, as my dad used to say. It's a good thing to remember. So our fish plate's going to slide up here a little bit more, so we'll have to do this one as well. Now I'm using an underlay, a foam underlay. Now see how that clip, when I push that down, that clip sprung underneath there? See how fine these little rail clips are? Now code 83, they are very fine because they're the right size. Code 100, these are quite big, so you can be pretty rough with it. When I first started laying code 83, gee did I stuff it up. I tell you, I used to pick these off all the time, unclip it and then have to feed the sleepers back on the rail and... Jesus Christ, I tell you, it shut me off. Anyway, you have to be careful with it. You have to be gently with code 83. And code 70 even more so. I don't know how you guys like code 70. Jesus. I think this one might be right on this side. Anyway, what I was saying, using this foam underlay, this is actually made in Australia, believe it or not. One of the last few things we make here. Now, I was going to use cork, and, cork's not bad. Cork has some advantages that it's solid. And when you're pinning the sleepers down, you don't need to worry about them doing that. And squashing. If you pin that too hard, if I put a spike or a nail through there and it squashes down, it will pull that rail clip off and it'll spring back up underneath the rail, and virtually that sleeper's not holding any rail then, so you have to be really careful when you spike it, which I'll show you. You don't get that problem in cork because cork is quite solid. The trouble with cork is that you have to split it to go around corners and you don't get this nice little edge here. This nice little edge here where you can ballast up and it looks like the ballast has already been formed. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Probably whatever you enjoy working with. So what we have to do, our first thing is we have to join this rail to another piece, and it's on a curve. So we'll solder it and get our nice little smooth joins there on the fish plates, and then we can curve the rail without it kinking. So how do we get, we've got a new piece of flex track here, how do we get this track to marry up with our staggered joints on the other one? Okay, well that's pretty easy. We need to get this rail, if I'm looking at it, we need to get this rail longer and we need to get this rail shorter. So what you do, are you paying attention? Thumb and forefinger like that. On that end, thumb and forefinger like that. Now, on the furthest end away from you, just have this one, where are we? Have this one loose, have the other end tight over both rails. Now, move around. Now, where are we? Let's try and get this in so you can see the mofo. Now, you can see that inside rail is getting longer. Can we see that? Now, I'm bending this track pretty severe, like that there. Okay, so that inside track, the inside rail I should say, is getting longer. Now, put your thumb and forefinger, or your thumb over that, and hold that end tight, like that. And then just release the other end, and gradually work the other end around. Right, this is bloody hard by yourself, trendsetters. Just work the other end around so it's straight again. Now, what have we got? There. It's not too bad. we going there? Okay, now so we need to go a little bit more. Now, what I can do while this track's here like this, I'll hold it level here, I'll put my thumb over the other end of the track and slowly bend it in. Now see that rail moving, closing up in there like that? Right, now the track is on a curve now, so what I do is hold these two rails here and then gradually just walk with my hand back down the track and straighten the bit of track out until we're happy with that. And there we go. So now we've crept that rail along so it matches that. See, that wasn't too hard. Once you've done it a couple of times, you'll get the hang of it. But the secret is holding your thumb over it like that and moving the other end of the rail, and you'll just get the hang of it. Okay, so let's trim some more clips on this one now. As you see, we don't need to... Should have done that before. Now see, that rail's moved already, but all I need to do is just move the rail again. There we go, like that. Now I need to cut this one here and probably this one. I don't need to cut these because the fish plate won't get to there. So I just need to trim these two. And we'll be right to do some soldering. What is it with you Americans? No, where's the L in solder? Did you sell it or something? S-O-L. But I suppose there's silent letters anyway. If we said soldering down here, I tell you, we can get in all sorts of trouble. Especially in certain bars where they ride motorcycles in leather caps. Oh, I'm going to hell for that one. Now, of course, this is for people who haven't laid track before. So, you know, you old timers that have been doing it for a while, you might want to go and do something else. Who knows? About time to snap one of these blades off and give myself another sharp blade, I think. Because remember, a blunt knife is more dangerous than a sharp one because you've got to push it more. Push it harder. Right, I've got my fish plates on and we're just going to slip these in here. Now, normally I try and make the fish plates a really snug fit, just crimp them up with a little pair of pliers. But when I'm doing a soldered joint, I leave them a little bit loose because A, they're going to fill up with solder. Now, see, I've got to walk that track up here again because it's opened up. That looks pretty good. Am I getting in the shot there or not? No. Now, I'm going to hold the track down and then move the other end of the track around so it's back on the baseboard. It was hanging off there. But I have to hold this end, otherwise this rail would creep back. Just going to move this fish plate up a little bit because it's moved down. So I'll just slide him up here. Pair of pliers there. That looks good. Now, when you're soldering, the idea is to have the track on a tiny bit of a curve, not too much, just a tiny little bit. And some guys will tell you to solder it when it's dead straight. Well, that's not bad. That's not a bad idea. But I found with Code 83 that if you solder it when it's dead straight, and then you try and bend it, you'll actually get what I call a reverse kink. You get a straight and then a curve, and then the rail goes straight where your fish plates are, and then it curves again. It's only minute, but if you just get the rail on a tiny bit, almost just a wee bit of a curve, not too much, because obviously you don't want the kink in it. But that's almost straight there. If you solder it like that, the fish plates and the joint is already on a slight curve, and you don't get that straight effect. It's not much, but code 100 it probably doesn't matter. But I've just found over doing many solder joints that just a bit of a curve, that's all. So let's get some soldering happening.
And then she says, well, you throw me another $100 and I'll wear whatever uniform you like. Little ripper girl says, oh, good evening. Yes, Lord Stan here. And we bring ourselves to a conclusion of this particular part A of this episode. I find it hard to believe we're actually seeing some reference being made to model railroads, which I find hard to believe. Nonetheless, we are going to have an interval now, so I suggest it's a good time for you to go and make yourself a cup of tea, like I have here, good iced tea with, well, basically scotch. And we'll carry on this riveting episode of Gregg joining two pieces of railway line together. And I can't believe how exciting and riveting it's going to be. So, anyway, off to the interval you go now, and we'll be back after a short time, and look forward to episode B of track laying on fish platforms. And this is Lord Stan saying goodbye for now. Hooroo.